Good day, everyone. Today, we will explore a profound theme in the book of Exodus, freedom. Specifically, we will examine how God's declaration, "Let my people go," relates to the concept of freedom, both in the historical and spiritual sense. This phrase, spoken by God through Moses to Pharaoh, is not only a rallying cry for liberation, but also a message that reveals the true nature of freedom. 1. The source of freedom, God as the ultimate liberator. The phrase "let my people go" highlights that freedom originates from God. By referring to the Israelites as "my people," God asserts his ownership and sovereignty over them. They are not Pharaoh's slaves, they belong to God. This distinction is critical. True freedom does not come from human efforts alone, but from aligning ourselves with the will of our Creator. This idea resonates throughout Scripture. In Galatians 5:1, Paul writes, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Just as God freed the Israelites from Egyptian bondage, Christ frees us from the bondage of sin." Both acts of liberation demonstrate that freedom is a divine gift, not merely a human achievement. 2. The purpose of freedom, worship and service. God's command to Pharaoh was not simply to release the Israelites, but to release them so that they could worship him. In Exodus 7:16, God declares, "Let my people go so that they may worship me." This shows us that freedom has a higher purpose. It is not about pursuing selfish desires or escaping responsibilities, but about serving and glorifying God. Jesus echoes this truth in John 8:36. "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." True freedom is found not in independence from all authority, but in joyful submission to God's authority. When we are freed from sin, we are freed to worship, to serve, and to fulfill God's purpose for our lives. 3. Freedom with responsibility. Freedom is not synonymous with lawlessness. After the Israelites were freed from Egypt, God gave them the law at Mount Sinai. Exodus 19:5 emphasizes this. "If you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession." This covenant shows that freedom comes with responsibilities. The Israelites were called to live according to God's commandments. Likewise, as Christians, we are not freed to do whatever we please, but to live lives that reflect God's holiness. True freedom thrives within the boundaries of God's law, which provides structure and purpose. Freedom in the social and political context. The Exodus story is often seen as a political liberation, the freeing of a people from oppressive slavery. While this aspect is significant, the Bible emphasizes the deeper, spiritual meaning. Without inner freedom, external liberation is incomplete. This lesson applies to modern society as well. Many nations and individuals pursue freedom, but without addressing the bondage of sin, their freedom remains superficial. Political freedom is valuable, but spiritual freedom is eternal. When individuals and societies align their pursuit of freedom with God's will, they find true peace and fulfillment. 5. Freedom and God's sovereignty. The story of Pharaoh's resistance is a sobering reminder of what happens when people reject God's sovereignty. Pharaoh's refusal to let the Israelites go led to devastating plagues and ultimately his own destruction. This demonstrates that true freedom can only exist within the framework of God's authority. When humanity seeks freedom apart from God, it often results in chaos and oppression. In contrast, submitting to God's sovereignty leads to liberation. As Psalm 119:45 states, "I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts." Freedom and obedience are not contradictory, but complementary. In conclusion, the phrase "let my people go" in the book of Exodus encapsulates the essence of true freedom. It reminds us that freedom originates from God. Freedom has a purpose: to worship and serve God. Freedom comes with responsibilities. True freedom is both spiritual and social. Freedom thrives under God's sovereignty. As we reflect on these truths, let us remember that freedom is not merely the absence of oppression, but the presence of God's purpose in our lives. When we embrace the freedom God offers, we find not only deliverance from bondage but also the fulfillment of our highest calling to worship and glorify Him. Thank you